Hi and welcome to the Geek Legion of Doom. This is a sci-fi movie review. I'll be having a look at the film The Last Starfighter. This is made in 1984 and directed by Nick Castle. It tells a tale of Alex Rogan, who is played by Lance Guest, who is a kind of a young man who lives in a kind of trailer park with his mother and his young brother. He's kind of going sort of nowhere with his life, and he's got this this girlfriend Maggie that he sort of plans to one day sort of do something with, but pretty much his kind of life is a fairly sort of dull and average existence. His only sort of outlet is playing this this video game, which is kind of the sole arcade machine in their sort of trailer park, and he is kind of, quite obsessed about this game, and he beats the high score, and no one's ever done it before. It's like, it's kind of the local thing that people do, and he manages to sort of get the highest score in it. And then he's approached by a strange man in a car. Now, sounds a bit dodgy, doesn't it? But he's actually a character called Centuri, played by Robert Preston, in what I think was his last role, actually. And basically, he sort of says to Alex, who is the person that sort of beat that game? He says, well, it was me. And basically, sort of, he sort of convinces Alex to go with him, and actually turns out that he's actually an alien, and the video arcade game was actually a recruitment device that was kind of sent to this trailer park by mistake. But basically, because Alex has sort of beaten it and got the highest score, he's basically kind of drawn the attention of this Centurion, who's essentially like a recruiter for this sort of like Star League, who is a kind of like almost like the Rebel Alliance from Star Wars. They're kind of the good guys. This sort of a collection of different aliens that are sort of fighting against an evil menace, and he's basically sort of whisked off up to space into their sort of into their sort of military base, and basically they want him to be an actual starfighter. And one of the good things about this film that I really enjoy is Lance Guest's performance, because he's so just bemused about what's going on, doesn't quite know what to do. And I think it's aside from maybe being a bit more scared, it's quite a good reactions. I think it's possibly like how someone would react to in these situations. Just kind of, he just doesn't know what he's doing, and just kind of shuffled around and sort of doesn't know what's going on. And he's put into this kind of like this military struggle, given him like a jumpsuit and stuff like that. And I will say this as a quick side note: this film has actually got a good explanation about how aliens are talking English, and they put a kind of device on his clothes that allows him to hear, and obviously us as viewers, obviously all the aliens talking in English, although they're actually talking in their native language. We just hear English, so that's quite good. So basically, he's kind of wanting, they want him to do this sort of like become this starfighter along with a bunch of other ones, but he's doesn't want anything to do with it. But initially, he's like, but Centuri basically, who is this kind of this alien recruiter, can't believe, because no other sort of being has ever sort of refused to be a starfighter, because but unfortunately Alex is the first human that they've ever approached, and obviously no one sort of knows about it, and because they think the Earth is too immature at this point. So he begrudgingly sort of takes Alex home, to sort of, he doesn't want to do it anymore. Actually, I forgot one thing. Before he's actually in space, he's actually been sort of substituted at his home with basically like a robot that looks like him, and that was actually that really provides the majority of the comedy relief in this program. Those scenes were actually filmed after the main shoots, apparently, because test audiences like the sort of the comedy element. So a lot of those scenes were actually made after the film was kind of the majority of the film was actually made. Anyway, so Alex comes back to Earth, and then basically sort of changes his mind after sort of an alien bounty hunter tries to kill him, basically, and he sort of knows that really he has to do it to sort of to have any sort of life. So he agrees to go back to into space to fight, but in the meantime, the bad guys have attacked the alien base and have literally killed all of the other starfighters. So when he goes back there, he is the last one, and his only sort of ally is an alien called Grig, who is kind of like this lizard man. And he's like the navigator of the ship, whilst Alex is the sort of the operates the sort of weapons and things like that. So they kind of on their own basically take on the entire fleet of the Kodan Armada. So what do I like about this film? Like I said before, I think the performances are great. I really like Lance Guest. I think he gives a good, believable performance. If for this type of film, you kind of do get this sense he's just massively out of his depth, and the way he reacts is just quite fun, and he's very reluctant, but not so much in a way that I don't think any sane person would be. Robert Preston as Centuri as well, is loads of fun as a kind of like he's a bit of a rascal. And I also like the Grig character as well, who sort of Alex kind of bonds with over the course of the film. And what I also liked about it is we are not given all of the information. We don't really see what has happened to the Star League. We kind of basically the head of the Star League, who are the good guys, his son has sort of betrayed them and has basically turned against him and kind of allied himself with this sort of other alien race to try and take over the League of Planets and stuff. But we don't really see how that will happen, which I quite like, because it doesn't feel like it has to explain everything to you. You just pick it up through through references and things like that, and we're told that this guy was a cult leader and stuff. But it gives you enough information that you know what's going on, but you feel like you're part of this sort of larger universe. And we're told about there's different alien species, and like this particular alien is particularly aggressive and whatnot. I also like the reference to the Excalibur test. Basically, one of the characters says to Centuri, who's the recruiter, "Did you use the Excalibur test?" Meaning, is the King Arthur and Excalibur, in the Knights of Old, was that a test as a sort of recruitment test as well? Which I quite liked as well. Just a sort of a little reference there. So, what didn't I like about it? Now, this film was made in 1984, and it is it's the first film to ever use complete CGI scenes. So all of the space battles and things like that, the spaceships, are completely CG, and it was the first film to do it. So in 1984, it was pretty much cutting edge special effects, but these days it hasn't dated all that well, and it looks very jarring when you watch it these days. I mean, I won't criticise it for that, but if you were a younger person and watching it now, you would think it is crap. But you have to accept that obviously this film was made in 1984. However, what I think I will criticise is the actual space battles aren't particularly exciting. Now, if you look at films like Star Wars, obviously they use models rather than sort of CG, but I think it just looks a lot more exciting and a lot more sort of engaging on screen. Whilst the obviously the very basic CGI that they've used just doesn't look very exciting. And it's not just the fact that it's CG, just the way that it's sort of the way that they're filmed and stuff like that, and what actually happens is the actual dogfights just aren't very exciting. He pretty much just goes along and just blows up the whole of the bad guys with very, very little resistance, and doesn't seem to take any damage whatsoever. So it kind of looks there's not much exciting in the actual fighting, and it's actually over quite short as well. It doesn't really go on for a hell of a lot long. But if you're looking at the CGI again, the CGI looks like almost like a basic video game, and it's quite floaty. But for the actual CGI itself, I won't criticise it. It's just the way that the actual space battles are. But that's really the only sort of criticism I would really say with this film. To be quite honest with you, I think everything else works well. I think some people may find the humour sometimes a little bit juvenile. It's quite fun, but you have to give it. You have to sort of bear in mind it's a sort of a film of its times. I think it's got a really great ending. I love the ending of this film, where basically he sort of comes down to pick up his girlfriend, and you know, the sort of spaceship lands, and all the sort of like the neighbours are seeing him, and he's basically explaining to his family and all these neighbours where he's actually been. They're all in sort of disbelief, and Greg the alien sort of comes down with him and sort of to meet his family and stuff, and they're initially afraid, and their reactions I just think are really funny. Additionally, one funny scene with this, if you watch the film, when Greg and Alex are speaking to his mother, what's the black guy to the, I think it's to the over her right shoulder. The expressions on his face are absolutely hilarious. He's obviously just an extra, but he so overdoes the expressions on his face. Just watch him. It's quite funny. Finally, with this film, this is. I know a lot of people aren't fans of remakes, but this is one film where I think that it could do with a remake. Because I think, you know, times have changed now. Obviously, it probably wouldn't be an arcade game. It might probably be an online game that people would be playing. And although I think it's a pretty decent film, it's certainly, I don't think it's one a lot of people, certainly younger people, will be aware of. And even sort of, you know, older people or people sort of my own age. It's maybe a film that you kind of maybe will forget about sometimes for the most part, and people generally think about, you know, Star Wars and Star Trek, and this one kind of gets sort of forgotten about a little bit. So I think that this film would be quite a good remake. They could change some bits, like as I say, the way he's recruited and stuff like that would be changed. So that's what I think. But overall, I really enjoy this film. It's a fun film. You can kind of get over the actual the special effects, the practical effects in regards to the makeup and stuff. I think are fine for the sort of a film of its age, but you know, the CGI is pretty dated these days. You know, and it kind of looks. You know, if you were to look at it just now, if you were to watch a 15-year-old kid watching it, they would not be into it because of the sort of CGI, but also just the space battles. But overall, I'm going to give this film a 7.5 out of 10. It's still probably one of my favourite sort of sci-fi films of the 80s. I do enjoy it. I enjoy watching it again for this review. So what would you give it? And would you be interested? Would you think a remake of this film is worthwhile? That's my question to you. So leave me a comment. Should they remake this film? And Hollywood, are you listening? This film needs to be remade. Leave me a comment. I look forward to seeing you next time. See you later.